Hello, my crafty friend, and thank you so much for joining me here in today's little junk journal flip through video. I'm so excited to share this one with you because it's one of my favorites, and I know I say that a lot, but really this one is super special to me because I used in it a lot of really cool little things that I've been hoarding, and it's nice to have finally found just the right little journal home for them. So yeah, let's get right into it. I'll start with the things on the cover, and that begins by taking off the really fun boho tassel that I made for this one. So I made the tassel removable on a binder clip, which I like to do, as you know. So that gives you the choice to either keep it on the journal that I've made it for, or you could clip it to anything you like. It's a lot of different fun fibers and a boho bead that I made out of some sari trim and some copper wire, and I stuck a little Sodalite star bead to the bottom. I absolutely love Sodalite because it reminds me of a cloudy night sky. And I'm sure you'll know exactly the kind of sky I'm talking about. You know, when it's kind of like after sunset, but it's not fully black yet, and there are a few wispy clouds, and the sky just has that magical look to it. I always think of that as a Sodalite sky. And so yeah, that's a genuine gemstone bead. Sodalite is believed by crystal healers to be a stone of third eye awakening and intuition and psychic awareness. So that makes this a wonderful piece to clip to an astrology themed mini journal because it helps keep that awareness open. And then this piece is a lot of fun. This was just a thrifted piece of costume jewelry, this little pendant. But what I love about it is that the bail clips open. So you can take this off the tassel and wear it as a piece of jewelry if you want to, or you can keep it there. And it has such a cool Art Deco style to it. Look at that geometry. And even though they're fake stones, you can tell because it's foiled on the back, they still have a really cool, beautiful, sparkly quality to them. So that's my first little share for the journal. My next little share is the giant water droplet made out of glass. This was also a thrifted find, and one of the pieces I mentioned earlier when I said I have been hoarding a lot of the stuff that went into this little journal. I knew that there would be a special project meant for this piece, and it just seems like the water droplets falling from this waterhouse painting needed a big water droplet to kind of echo and mirror that. And so yeah, this is the closure. If you don't like a big heavy piece of art glass hanging from your journal, if you decide to buy this one, you can easily just cut off the yarn trim and then wear it separately. So the cover piece is a bookmark that I made out of this beautiful embroidered sari trim, and on the other side I put, like I said, a print of a waterhouse painting that I printed onto linen paper, so it's got a really cool canvas-like texture to it, and then framed it in this pretty blue sort of bottle brush trim. And the interesting story is I gave the journal the title The Water Bearer because the woman in this painting who's pouring what looked to me like water as an offering into the sea, she reminded me of the symbology for the astrological sign of Aquarius. And if you see the pictures of Aquarius, Aquarius typically shows a water bearer pouring water from a jug. And I did a Google search to find out what that means spiritually. And it's a representation of the elements of life and the elements of goodness and purity and existence, the life-giving waters being brought down to planet Earth from the celestial realm. And I just love that. This picture, however, is of Circe, the witch from Greek mythology, who is pouring poison into the water to turn her enemy into a monster. And so it's kind of ironic that I chose a painting depicting something kind of dark, and my mind that always wants to see the love and light and goodness and everything thought something else entirely was going on here. So I thought she was pouring, you know, the essence of goodness down to earth, but the sinister look on her face should have been the giveaway that it's actually something else. So this piece, I didn't glue it down, I left it separate, and that way you can choose whether or not you want to keep her in your journal. But I like to kind of take something and flip it and give it a new meaning. So for me, this symbolizes pouring down an offering of goodness. Maybe she has a change of heart halfway through and turns the poison into nectar or something. But anyway, I do love the aesthetic of this image, and I hope you do too. The rest of the cover is a patchwork that I made using pieces of fabric that my grandmom gifted me that were part of her stash, and I sewed them on using gold thread, and then I put a little golden moon on the top right hand corner that I made out of polymer clay, and then I gilded it using mica powder. So that has a really cool sheen and a cool texture to it. This piece I left one edge not sewn shut, and then I glued some pretty trim to it to make it into an interactive pocket. And into that I stuck some coffee dyed blue paper that you can maybe write your inscription, what the book is for you, maybe the date that you're starting it, or you can use this somewhere else. You don't need to keep it in the cover. And I also stuck a little collection of pages that are on vellum. And initially I was going to glue these into the book to decorate the pages inside, but I talked myself out of it and thought, you know what, somebody might buy this book and want to use these in a different way. So I respected that possible aesthetic difference of opinion and left them there so that whoever gets it can do with it what they will. And then the back cover is this stunning Japanese print fabric. I love the gold thread in here, which is what gave me the idea to use gold thread for the whole thing. And then to kind of give it some alchemical symbology, the way there's a moon on the front, I made a little polymer clay sun for the back. I love putting pieces on the journal that I've made myself, like pendants that I've made, charms that I've made, elements I've sculpted out of clay. Of course I used a mold for it. I shouldn't make it sound like I sculpted that by hand, but it's still a handmade piece, and I think that gives the journal some special kind of uniqueness. So inside, I made a pocket on the inner front cover using just some pretty purple floral fabric. And then the lining is this piece that's also from my grandmom's collection that shows these beautiful fans, and I just love the movement in them. So this is just a paper clip that I've added some scrap fabric to. Here's another one of those really pretty vellum prints. Isn't that gorgeous, the lady with the moon? And then this is a book page from a book about astronomy. And I just love the star charts. I think they look so cool and so aesthetically pleasing. I even like the rough edge where it's been torn out of the book. So this could be kind of kept in as just a curious little piece of paper, or you could use it in collaging, maybe make it into an envelope. What I love about junk journals is that they're so full of different kinds of paper that you can find multiple uses for them. You could use this just as it is, as a collectible piece, or you can write little notes to yourself in the white space on the page. Really cool. I think I mentioned a few videos ago that I'd like to make a whole video about how to use junk journals. And don't worry, I haven't forgotten about that. I'm still going to do it. I'm just waiting to finish making my own personal junk journal first, because that's the book I'll use to demonstrate how to use a junk journal. I'm not going to start writing in a book that I'm planning to sell on Etsy, because that's for the person who buys it to do. But anyway, just some ideas of what I would do with a page like this. So the other thing in that little pocket is an envelope that I made by printing a vintage Israeli envelope that's in my personal collection that has the wheel of the Zodiac on a stamp on that envelope. And so I printed this onto a piece of mulberry paper, handmade paper with little leaves and little tiny flower buds embedded into it. It's so delicate. It's about the same thickness as a tracing paper, but it's more matte and has just a really soft cottony feel to it. So after I printed that, I inked up the edges and then glued it down into an envelope. And then I added a couple of stamps of Queen Elizabeth in colors that matched the colors that were already on the little envelope. And that way, even though this is a print, not the original, it still has some original vintage ephemera on it. So it gives it more of an authentic kind of a feeling. And I stuffed this little envelope with a set of cards showing all the different visible planets. So the 9 luminaries, as they would be called in astrology, and it just gives little bits of information about each one. The zodiac sign correspondence, the attributes. They're just really, really pretty. I'll put a link to the shop where I bought these printables in the description below. And then I backed them with this gorgeous patterned paper that is from Medieval Mirage. One of my favorite, actually it's the very first printable paper kit I ever bought, called Bohemian Bazaar Volume 2, and I bought the papers and also the add-on kit. And they're a little pricey for printables. I think I paid $10 each for the big pages and for the add-ons. But I get so much use out of them. I put something from that kit in pretty much every journal I've ever made because they're just so versatile. And they have that kind of opulent, colorful, vibrant thing that I love. So the first page, I put a print of another vintage astrology wheel. So you have all 12 signs of the zodiac moving around the sun. I put some really pretty colorful trim on the bottom that has these fun little pom-pom beads dangling from it. I kind of wanted the color scheme to be mostly blue, but with pops of other bright colors, so that it's not too monochromatic. And then inside this big envelope, I put a print of an antique Japanese book from the Edo period that I bought online specifically after seeing this image, which is a lunar cycle wheel. So it shows the movement from dark moon to full moon and back. And it's obviously about palmistry and maybe also about astrology. I wish I could read the characters and tell you exactly what it says, but I'm not able to. But I think aesthetically it really suits this little book. So on the other side of that, oh, you'll notice that here's the first little side dangle of the book. These are charms I made out of Sunstone and Moonstone. And I absolutely love combining Sunstone and Moonstone together because you get the best of both celestial bodies. I put those onto a belly band that's made out of more of that Medieval Mirage paper. See how I used that same paper to line this pretty little booklet. So the booklet features an astrology print, and see how there's the sun, there's the moon, there's a key. you'll find that I took these symbolic elements and kind of worked them in throughout the book. And this is just a little scrappy mini extra book that you can use for some journaling, some writing. There's some beautiful handmade paper from India. And then the back of the book has an information card all about Sunstone that I've put on a hinge made out of some sari fabric. And then the back cover page is information all about Moonstone. So that's why the paper clip on that particular page has a real sunstone and a real moonstone. And this just slides back in here like so. So some lined paper with astrology themed washi tape in colors that kind of mirror the background papers. A little tuck spot showing illustrations of all 12 zodiac signs. I've stuck into that just an offcut of more of this lined paper with a pretty watery image. And this is a blue piece of paper that I coffee dyed, and I just love how every time I coffee dye paper, it turns out differently, and I'm not sure how some people can coffee dye paper and it's consistently always the same, but I love that it's always different because then you get these cool textures. Doesn't that look kind of topographical? It reminds me of the edges of a coastline on a map or something, which is really, really fun. So here's a little snippet of vintage ledger paper from the 1960s. And I clipped onto it a genuine Victorian calling card. Oh, I guess, sorry, a Victorian advertisement card from Arm & Hammer. So it's a baking soda advertisement, but with these pretty, pretty poppies. So like I said, I tried to give some pops of other colors, even though there's mainly a blue theme. And then this is just a pretty little thrifted pendant that I've adorned the paper clip with. Some more coffee dyed paper. That's a coffee dyed linen paper that I put a print. So this is genuine ephemera from the Victorian period. This is a copy I made of another Victorian card from the same scrapbook. And I just made that into a flip using some sari fabric as a hinge. So lots of writing space here and here. The dark blue pages you can write on using something like a gel pen or colored pencils or a white pencil. And then I just tucked a little star chart that I inked up into this fun blue pom-pom trim that can double as a tuck spot. There's an upper tuck made out of a dark star chart and some torn paper that I coffee dyed. This was fun. I pre-tore and grunged up a piece of linen paper. Then I coffee dyed it, so you get these really cool rough edges that make it look super old. And then after it had dried, I made myself a cup of tea one day and decided to just put the tea bag onto it to see what happens if a tea bag sits on coffee dyed paper. And it printed this cool dark kind of a triangle onto it. So that is both coffee and tea dyed. And then here's another little snippet of coffee dyed linen paper with some coffee stenciling. I should mention the day that I'm filming this video, it is National Coffee Day. So maybe that's why I've got so many coffee dyed papers in here. That's not why, that's just a happy accident, but I can pretend that that's why. So more coffee dyed linen paper with a pretty little beaded cluster decorating the top corner. And then here's another print of that Edo period Japanese encyclopedia. I just love the way the characters look. I love how they made it with different types, different scripts of characters. So you have the lines on the top. I think they're read up to down, left to right. But then there's also this grid with the larger characters, and then the illustration is just so cool. And then I clipped that in using a pendant that I made out of handmade art glass. So there's some Venetian glass, and then a Lapis Lazuli. And remember earlier I was saying how Sodalite always reminds me of the midnight sky? Lapis Lazuli really does too, so you're kind of getting two third eye gems. And I wanted to talk a little bit about the Age of Aquarius as I do this flip through. There's a vintage, all the different astrology chart signs kind of embodied here, personified, doing a little circle dance. This is fabric from Tibetan prayer flags that I ordered specifically to use in journals. But anyway, yeah, the Age of Aquarius, I don't mean for this journal to be exclusively for people whose astrology sign is Aquarius. I mean this to be for anybody. And the kind of Aquarian theme is because the next age that we enter, we're moving from the Age of Pisces into the Age of Aquarius. There's some dyed, fun, crinkly tracing paper on that 1960s ledger. But yeah, the Age of Pisces, I looked this up to find out what it means because I think we've all heard of the Age of Aquarius, if not just for the musical with the song, This is the Dawning of the Age of Aquarius. I was curious, like, what does that actually mean? And yeah, the way throughout the year we move through the different signs of the zodiac, similarly, Earth has its own cycles and its own eras that move through the signs of the zodiac, and they last about 2,160 years. And for about the last 2,000 years or so, we have been in the Age of Pisces. And Pisces is a water sign that's mutable. So that means it's a very emotional era for humanity. People are very much in their thoughts, in their bubbles. I mean, based on the legends of all of this, the astrological implication. And moving into Aries, Aries is an air sign, and air is more intellectual than emotional. So it's kind of like collectively we're moving out of our bubbles of feeling our feelings into a space where we can more articulate ourselves and express ourselves and interact with each other and be more open. And so I wanted this book to have both a water theme and an air theme. It's kind of a book that symbolizes the movement from the Age of Pisces into the Age of Aquarius. So there's the moody Piscean energy represented by all the colors of the water. And then Aquarius, I'm sorry, I think I said Aries by mistake when I meant to say Aquarius. And Aquarius is represented by the water bearer symbology. And of course, all the signs of the zodiac are represented in all the places that I've placed it, plus suns and moons and stars to give you that a little bit too on the nose astrology vibe. But I love this kind of stuff. These are also printables that I bought on Etsy from a really talented digital artist. I'll put links to all those printables. And then the center, I wanted to do something to kind of accentuate this printable paper. So I dyed two different sized little doilies, one with some blue paper so that the blue would seep out and color the doily itself, and then one just straight coffee so you get that layered look. And I think this just turned out so well. I couldn't be happier with the color, the layering and the color matchiness between this paper and these doilies. So here I used some Dresden trim as a tuck spot to put more of this handmade paper from India. That's just some vintage French book paper. And then this flips open to show Van Gogh's Starry Night. I love this painting. This is the kind of sky that I see when I look at a piece of sodalite stone. See what I mean? Like, this could be a Van Gogh painting captured in rock. And then some of the Aquarian symbology. Aquarius holds a water jug. So here is an ancient Roman water jug that I turned into kind of a little flip out, inked the edges to make it look old, glued that down onto an envelope, and then stuck another fun astrology print. That's another vintage image. I found these vintage images just by searching the database of, I think it was the New York Public Library, has a lot of really cool vintage illustrations that are in the public domain, so anybody can print them and use them in work. And then the envelope also has a journaling card that I coffee dyed a stenciled image onto. I'm sure I've said this in other videos before, but I just love layering all kinds of different ephemera pieces. Part of the magic of junk journals is the collection of stuff. I grunged up this by taking some gold acrylic paint and just randomly rubbing it on. And so it gives it a nice shine. So here's that. You can see the date on this authentic piece of paper. It's dated 1966, and then it looks like they've also gone into 1967. Really cool history. I made a pocket out of this beautiful vintage painting of an Indian princess and stuck a print of some Indian stamps. The water jug, again echoing the Age of Aquarius theme. And then these are just little sticky notes in the shape of the moon. I was watching a flip through of another junk journaler's book, and she mentioned a lot of people don't get junk journals. They're definitely something made for, the way she worded it, us paper ladies. And I love that. I think that's how I'll refer to myself from now on. I'm a paper lady. I'm just into collecting all kinds of different paper. So this is my favorite thing in the book. I've been waiting to say this is my favorite thing because this really is my favorite thing. I took this little snippet of vintage red sari fabric and then glued it down so that it can be used as the tie. And then into it I made, out of coffee dyed grid paper, this little accordion book that has all 12 signs of the zodiac. So the back is just plain for you to write on, draw on, collage on, maybe stick your favorite stickers onto it. It's super long, and it goes through the 12 signs of the zodiac out of stamps from India. I love Vedic astrology and the Indian tradition of astrology. And I Googled the correct order, so these go in order, starting with the first sign, which is Aries. And yet they are just so much fun. I actually bought this set of stamps as one of my souvenirs from India, and this is the second time that I've printed them to use in a book because they're just, I have trouble using the originals of things if I only have one of them. The paper that this is on is from that Victorian scrapbook that I've taken apart to salvage the stuff out of it. So it's extremely old. The book, the back of the book is dated 1870. So it's like 150 years old. It's super crumbly, it's super brittle. And I've mentioned this in other videos. If you try to fold it, it just snaps like a cracker. So I've made it into a page in the book by backing it using this pretty gold sari trim. vintage music paper. This is just an altered plain card. I love the dragon image. I bought that in a little gift shop in the Rocky Mountains. I bought a pack of these cards just to use in journals. And then I did a collage on this side using just scraps of paper from vintage French books and an old lapidary magazine and some coffee dyed stuff. Fun way to use up the scraps from a project like this. A tuck spot pocket made out of pretty sari trim. And I did just a scrappy little booklet on this using a fun piece of crystal space paper, a folded over piece of a kid's book page. And then this linen paper was actually tucked inside an antique French book that I bought at a local antique shop. And that is authentic aging. Like, those stains were on it when I got it. I don't know how old it is. I think it was probably tucked into that book as a bookmark, but it has a really beautiful texture to it. I think you can see that linen texture. The camera's picking it up, thank goodness. But yeah, it has little ink stains and little splotchy bits, and us paper ladies, we like that kind of thing. These are held together with a star brad, so you can take them apart and use them in whatever you want if you want to. There's a fabric flip. That's an authentic stamp. I found this in a collection of stamps I bought at a local antique shop. A music composer, and I love all the golden stars in the background, which made me think it suits the theme of this book. So a mucha print, this beautiful mystical woman who's haloed by the signs of the Zodiac. So that's just a journaling card on a coffee dyed piece of paper. And then this tab is attached to the paper clip. There's where I put the key. Remember earlier I showed you that other print and said there's a key, there's a sun, there's a moon. And so that's where I took the key symbol from. And then this little purple sari tab is also a pocket that holds this teeny tiny little scrappy, super miniature. I absolutely love miniature books and just tiny miniature things in general. So yeah, this really, really super tiny mini junk journal just goes into the tab. It's a little hard to get it in. Oops. Because the other side of this sari trim is quite rough where it's been embroidered. I'm not sure if you can see into it. Easy to do off camera, tough to do when I'm filming a video. But yeah, that I just pinned in place here. And then I had put onto the other side of that a really gorgeous, brightly colored piece of trim. Just because I think when we're working with a monochromatic color palette, like lots of blues and lots of beiges, it's nice to add a few pops of bright color. So I left it loose. I didn't glue it down, and that way you have the option whether to keep it in your book or not. And then onto this piece of the graph paper, I folded this over. I was going to glue it down to make it into a pocket, but again, I thought I'll leave the option to do that to the future owner of this book. So I just kind of paper clipped it in instead. And this paper clip has a pretty sun and moon charm. So again, that astrology, alchemy vibe. There's the other side of that coffee dyed pretty blue paper. Some pansies, just because they're pretty. That's kind of a fun 3D sticker, so you can use it as a tuck spot. I didn't tuck anything into it because the book became very, very chunky as my books always tend to do. This tuck spot is made from a print of a chrysocolla crystal. And that brings us to the back. So the very last page has one of my favorite French fairy tale castle vintage stamps. I bought a big set of these once from an Etsy shop called Forever French. And so there's the other side of that pretty fan fabric from my grandmom's collection. A tuck spot made out of an embroidered purple rose. And into there I put a postcard that I bought from a local antique shop that shows the palace in Bangkok, Thailand. Nothing really to do with the book except that I love it. A piece of wallpaper sample from a Sears catalog sample book from 1928. I did a flip through video of that wallpaper sample book that I will publish next year when it enters the public domain, and that's when I'll put a full set of all of these wallpaper samples in my Etsy shop as printables. I googled, and note 1928 is not yet public domain, but it will be next year. And then here are two Moonology oracle cards. They have specific messages on them for whoever buys the book. I pulled them at random, and so that's a message just for the book owner. And there you have it. My Age of Pisces into Age of Aquarius astrology themed. I guess I could call it an astrologer's treasury because it's filled with beautiful symbols of the sun, the moon, the planets, the stars, the night sky, and I hope you had fun looking at it. I left the sides kind of without tabs so that these pretty charms will stand out a little bit more, but the bottom is just beautifully dripping with beads and pretty colors and pretty textures. And if you've noticed the background, here's another book that I bought at a thrift shop thinking that I would take it apart and use it in junk journals because it's all different pictures of embroidery and craft projects. And then I fell so in love with it just as a reference book that I can't bring myself to cut it up. So I don't know if that happens to you as well if you're a crafter, but you find things at a thrift shop that you think would be perfect to use in crafting, and then you decide you just have to keep them as part of your hoard. So I've decided the way I'm going to use all of my hoarded books like this is to use them as backdrops when I film videos. And I'm always going to check if I ever find this same book again at a thrift store, I'll buy a second copy and then I can have one to hoard and one to use. But anyway, yeah, there's the little video for today. You can find the Water Bearer journal in my Etsy shop called Art of Gems Stationery. I'll put a link to that in the video description below. Thank you so much for watching. Happy crafting, happy journaling. Bye for now.